Um, uh, 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 da, da, dun, da, da, dun, da, da, da. Dun, dun, da, da, dun, 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 da, da, dun, 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 da, 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 da. Dun, da, da, dun, 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 da, da, dun, dun, da, 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 da. Dun, da, da, dun, dun, da, dun, da, da, dun, dun, da, 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 da. Da 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 dun da 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 dun da 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 yun da 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 dun da 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 dun da 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 da. Oi! All right, welcome to the anti-Semitism special. I guess that's just what I'm gonna call it, because it's what it's technically classified as, even though it's not anti-Semitic. Now, we should probably label this anti-Zionist because we do not want to delete people's free will. What we're going to go over is a little bit of history about what makes Zionism such an aberrant and evil thing. Now, apparently, a big thing with all the black cubes, phylacteries, Mecca, financial logos, Blackstone, BlackRock, etc., is that the center of the Star of Metatron, which is on the Israeli flag, but was also on the flag of Karaman, a Muslim nation in the northern Levant, is a cube. Saturn, the synchronistic Roman god of the harvest, which is a Kabbalistic cult, and shot up all those people in Las Vegas when they injured over 1,000. There's no way that was one person, and there's obvious evidence that they had, removed large portions of the wall, and there was people were noticing different muzzle flashes all over the place. So, yeah. That was on the anniversary of the Saturnalian ritualistic holiday. And it's also the direct translation from Kronos, the Greek god of time who devours his children, like the Moloch-worshipping Canaanites. And on that same anniversary that I just talked about, Elon Musk, notable demon cosplayer and Lovecraftian fishman, just recently changed Grok and his own X avatar to an AI-generated image of Saturn. Strangely enough, Saturn has a 6-pointed cube at its pole, which is a pretty clear sign of prophetic intuition if there ever was one, but also something that more recently has been tacked into at a very, very fast rate. The leather cube rabbis wear on their heads, called a phylactery, contains a little portion of the Torah. Actually, that's not what a phylactery is. That's called something else. But that particular cube contains a little portion of the Torah. But there's also a real-world soul gem from Elder Scrolls called the phylactery, which they believe can contain their soul, and I guess save them from being devoured by Slanesh after they die or something along those lines. Want to know when the Spanish Golden Age started? 1492. Want to know when the Jews were expelled from Spain? 1492. No Jewish kingdom has lasted longer than 80 years in history. Israel is 75 years old. Even the United Kingdom of David and his demoniac son Solomon fell in under 80 years. The reason being, no matter how much material wealth they could amass, spiritual poverty led to internal conflicts. And funny enough, this is an interesting thing about that particular form of usurious finance. When I was young, because I was on ADHD medications, I rarely ate lunch. I would save up my lunch money and handed out zero-interest loans to anybody that I trusted. I maintained this practice for close to a decade. And I felt great about being anti-usurious, even though I didn't really know what usury was at the time. It just felt good doing. I felt like I was helping people and not stealing from them. And I kept this up for like a decade almost. I did this hundreds of times. Well, come to find out, it turns out the Jewish banking establishments will do the exact same thing, but only for other Semites. Want to know who the real racists are? While charging insane interests on other people that they deem goyim. You know, interestingly enough, Napoleon established the Banque de France with no usury. He was exiled by the Jacobins, killed with Rothschild's signature poison, and had his work reversed. Napoleon III was beloved by the people, but they sidelined him super hard. It is what it is, you know. France helped America become accustomed to worshipping pagan symbols, like the Statue of Liberty, which is the goddess of Libertas, and Columbia, who is like Africa, a naked woman, like in personification, who held a cornucopia and a parrot while sitting on an alligator. And no, I do not think that Hitler was like Napoleon. I'll get into that a little bit later. However, I think the long-term results and the violence towards Catholics are important disqualifiers. I think Hitler was stuck in a cycle started by Martin Luther, who did have a few good points in his theses, but ended up his life bathed in the blood of the innocent. I mentioned this before because it's a notable truth about that cycle and how it repeated in the same area around the spawning of around the same area as Marx spawned. You know, all these intellectuals. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be like Pol Pot and just kill anybody with glasses, but you should definitely be wary of people who aren't aware of the concept of the Luciferian intellect and who think that talk is more lucrative than action. I know. Hollywood is renowned for their Nazi role-playing. They love painting the Nazis as sexy and stylish. However, well, continuing on that, they paint them as Hannibal Lecter-style geniuses that ruled with an iron fist. However, they ignore completely the deep connection between Catholics and the sciences. And they consecrated both Germany and the Holocaust exclusively to the Nazis. And what do edgelord internet autists do? They lap it up and say, "Thank you, sir, may I have another?" I probably wouldn't be interested in a lot of this, just content to run around and call girls beautiful and feed birds and cats and clean trash up and unclog storm drains during the floods, if it wasn't for the immense damage Joe Biden, Elon Musk, and Ronald DeSantis have done in my backyard. It's creeping towards a nightmare in a beautiful, beautiful land. And I have found out firsthand that what these people do with control is slowly poisons God's creation to death. The people trying to illegalize criticism of Israel are the most destructive people on the planet. Come to find out, Zelensky is in a cult called Chabad Lubavitch, and his parents live in Israel. The head rabbi of Chabad Lubavitch declared that Benjamin Netanyahu would usher in the reign of their Messiah. Ukraine was a living, vibrant country not too long ago. Now it is the crime capital of Europe. Also an interesting fact. Iran banned Masonic lodges in their nation. But that same Iranian, Persian Masonic lodge was re-established in Los Angeles in the 80s, I believe. So what are the Masons? Masons are the stone temple builders, formerly the Kohens by name. It's also likely where the word Calvin from Calvinism came from. And the wooden temple builders would be shot through David's line, as well as the origin of Jesus and Joseph's carpentry, whereas Solomon and the Second Temple would redefine this, extracting immense wealth from ancient Israel and collapsing his kingdom. But back to the Masons. So the Freemasons would become, as such, after Clement V would disband the Knights Templar of the Temple of Solomon for practicing pagan orgiastic occult rituals. They would become most active in England and Scotland, and from there establish a global financial network centered in London, where they would buy the Dutch East Indies Company from the House Orange, and were of the Netherlands, and were the adopters of the exiled Jews, who were the House Orange, the adopters of the exiled Jews from Portugal after Ferdinand and Isabella's decree. The Knights Templar set up the first international bank and created the backbone for the international slave trade, which would be brought to life under the pre-exile Portuguese and later England. There is a ritual in the Masonic initiation where the pledge is symbolically killed, and the members pretend like they saw, heard, and say nothing. That's interesting to recognize. There's also sigilism that's shot through gang culture deeply. I've seen it incorporate the Star of Metatron, Solomon's sigils, as well as directly satanic symbols, which also share ritual form and function. Why do they say snitches get stitches? Because that's one of the ways of eroding a high-trust society. Believe it or not, you could be some little edgelord kid who thinks that it is cool to go fast and do drugs, but the older you get, the more you see that's one of the biggest problems is gang networks, drug dealers, and the systems in your country that they can subvert. And a lot of that has to do with having a low trust society, and a big portion of it also has to do with the fact that talking to the police rarely makes anything better these days. Not how it used to be, but these days. And I don't think it's coincidental that it's really, really been bad after Israel started training our police officers. I think that's a big qualifier for why the police are as they are today. Many of them still want to do good. Many of them do not want to see the long-term consequences of Israel's actions in their country, but they can't usually see it. This is why they say that police are selected as low IQ individuals, specifically because police are selected from a pool of people who cannot tell that they are actually, and at the end of the day, serving their own country's enemy. So, occultum translates to obscured, secret, from Latin. It's only occult when it's kept secret. Expose it. This is one of the reasons why I went to bat for Kiwi Farms as a concept. I really thought that they could do a lot of good, and it is one of the most disappointing things in my entire life to see Null just blanketly support the obliteration of Muslim children, like not caring at all. And yeah, I'm going down to the bottom of the issue and pulling up the most nasty part of it, but it's still true. It's still 100% true. Somehow, because Muhammad was a pedophile, it makes it all right to kill every man, woman, and child in Muslim nations. That's not right. And it's very disappointing. And we hope and we pray that Noah will, for whatever reason, not be intimidated, terrorized, or tricked into submitting his work and his duty to the enemy of all mankind and all decency. So, back to it. It's no coincidence that the Novus Ordo Catholic Church, after allowing itself to be a black market slush fund and child sex trafficking hub since 1958, has issued a pardon of the demoniac Knights Templar in the last 33 years. Ho, ho, ho. Not exactly, but in the last 33 years. Now let's get into that a little bit. There is a consistent rabbinical talking point that the cultures of Aesop and Ishmael, of Christianity and Islam, have persecuted Israel for 3,300 years. It's a fascinating number, since the highest rank of Freemasonry is the 33rd degree. aping the years of Christ's walking on this earth. And when you reach the 32nd degree, to get to the 33rd, you have to consecrate your soul to Satan, which is also Moloch, which is also Baal or Baal, and in some cases Zeus. Now, on that point, Pergamon is the Hebrew name for all four of those mythological concepts. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's madam, her father was Mossad and employed Epstein to collect dirt on U.S. elites. Now, there's backstabbing and murder shot throughout that entire story, but him selling Epstein a camera-riddled mansion for $1, him being involved heavily in pharmaceutical testing, him running a publishing company called Pergamon Press, which translates to Satan's throne from Old Hebrew, and writing most medical textbooks in the U.S. is noticeable. Very noticeable. Let's get into that a little bit more. If you look up Pergamon and read the AI auto reply from the search engine, it will be like asking DeepSeek about Tiananmen Square. It'll translate it to a high place. But if you scroll down into ancient text translations, you'll get the real scoop. Funny enough, there's an Indo-European cognate between the North Italian city of Bergamo. Bergamum is the name of the Celtic god of mountains, so a religious high place, alike in many ways to the significance of Mount Sinai, of Mount Zion, and later the Eagle's Nest, Hitler's mountaintop bunker designed by Albert Speer. Speer cognate with Shapiro. Digging a little further, we find that in 1864, Imperial German architects excavated and moved brick by brick the altar of Pergamum from Anatolia. And in 1930, an exhibit would open in Berlin with this altar at its center. Albert Speer would utilize the altar as his inspiration to building of the parade grounds for Hitler in Nuremberg. Now, where does this tie into Odinism? So in the Old Norse religion, there is a bridge called the Rainbow Bridge that connects to Saturn, the sixth planet. The modern gay pride flag has 6 colors in its rainbow, and Odinists are known for their homosexual proclivities. But what the Delphi case has uncovered is that they are also into ritualistic child sacrifice. This also ties into why Hitlerians are not to be trusted. On to Ireland. Each Samhain, or what we call now Halloween, the people of Named had to give 2/3 of their children, their corn, and their milk to the monstrous Fomorians. Later, these Norse invaders would help the first Witchfinder general, James VI, otherwise known as James I, establish the Ulster Plantation, burning, looting, and setting roughly 1/3 of Irish lands on fire before contracting into North Ireland and Dublin, also known as the Pale. I really hate it when people start getting jumpy around names, right? Yes, it's suspicious that some people change their birth names. That should always be noted if the individual is a troublemaker. But I've seen some of the most off-point, psychotic tantrums from people who assume character based on name alone, from people who talk about matrilineal descendants as if it is the ultimate qualifier, from people who deny the free will to reject things that you are born with. Judge people based on their actions and the company that they keep. Identity politics is a tool of the enemy. And remember, wheels of justice turn slow, but grind ever so fine. God's will not be abated. Hope everybody enjoyed that. It's probably part 1 of a multi-part investigative deep dive into Zionism and its history. And I hope you all enjoyed. This is great. 20-minute, concise episode. And, well, take care. Cheers.